I still remember the exact moment my world collapsed. The Hong Kong skyline glittered through my hotel room window as I prepared for the biggest client presentation of my career. The notification sound was innocent enough, a gentle ping from my phone that would forever divide my life into before and after. Let's be adults about this, Rachel. I've filed for divorce. My husband Aaron's text glowed on the screen, casual as if he were canceling dinner plans. My fingers trembled as I tried to call him, but it went straight to voicemail. 3 times, 4 times, nothing. Panicking, I opened our joint banking app, the one we'd used for our 11 years of marriage. Our savings account showed a balance of $4.27. Just yesterday, it had held over $240,000. Our investment account? Empty. Our emergency fund? Gone. I sank onto the edge of the hotel bed, my presentation notes scattering to the floor. 3 more months of this business trip stretched ahead of me, an eternity away from home. What could have happened? We'd kissed goodbye 3 weeks ago. He'd promised to water my orchids and had been texting me goodnight emojis every evening. My phone pinged again. A notification from our mortgage app. Ownership change request submitted. He wasn't just leaving me. He was erasing me. I locked myself in the marble bathroom, sliding down against the door until I hit the cold tile floor. My wedding ring caught the light as I covered my mouth to muffle my sobs. 11 years of memories flashed before me. Our backpacking honeymoon in Thailand, the way he'd brought me coffee every morning, the plans we'd made for children next year. Let's be adults about this. What kind of adult empties shared accounts without warning? What kind of adult ambushes their spouse from 7,000 miles away? My suitcase lay open in the other room, filled with the clothes he'd helped me pack. "You'll knock them dead," he'd said, zipping it closed for me. Had he known then? Had he been planning this the entire time I worked toward this promotion? I splashed cold water on my face and stared at my reflection. I couldn't afford to fall apart, not with the Henderson presentation in 40 minutes, not with my career hanging in the balance. My phone lit up again. A notification from our property management app, deed transfer initiated for 145 Westlake Avenue. Our home, the Spanish Revival we'd renovated room by room. The garden where I'd planted heirloom tomatoes every spring. He wasn't just divorcing me, he was trying to steal everything we'd built together. With shaking hands, I opened our home security app. We'd installed the system last year, for peace of mind, Aaron had said. Now it would show me exactly what was happening in the home I was locked out of. The living room appeared empty, but I could hear music. Our bedroom camera was disabled, but the kitchen feed was active. A woman stood at our marble island, pouring herself a glass of wine. My wine. From the collection Aaron and I had built during our anniversary trip to Napa. She turned, and I nearly dropped my phone. Those weren't just any heels clicking across my hardwood floors. They were my Christian Louboutins, the ones Aaron had given me for my last birthday. The woman tossed her hair back, laughing at something off camera. I recognized that laugh. The one I'd heard at countless dinner parties and girls' nights out. Elise, my former friend, the woman who'd helped me plan Aaron's surprise birthday party just 3 months ago. I zoomed in, my stomach turning to ice. She was wearing my favorite sundress too, the one I'd left hanging in my closet. She looked completely at home, as if she belonged there. Whatever breakdown I'd been about to have hardened into something else entirely. This wasn't just betrayal. This was calculated cruelty. Excellent presentation, Rachel. The Henderson account is ours. My boss clapped me on the shoulder as the clients filed out, chattering excitedly about our proposal. No one in the gleaming conference room had any idea that behind my confident smile and crisp PowerPoint, my life was unraveling. I'd somehow found the steel to deliver a flawless pitch, while mentally cataloging which assets Aaron could access, and which were solely in my name. Too few, it turned out. We'd merged most of our finances when we bought the house. "Celebrate tonight," my boss said. "This deal will transform the Asia-Pacific division." I nodded, already planning my next move. While the team headed for celebratory drinks, I slipped away to call my bank. I needed to protect whatever I could before Aaron took that too. As I gathered my notes, my colleague Dan lingered by the door. "Strange thing," he said casually. "Your husband emailed the home office yesterday. Something about you taking a sabbatical after this trip. said we should direct all your accounts to him temporarily. My smile froze in place. Aaron wasn't just stealing our money. He was trying to hijack my career, the very reason I was in Hong Kong. Did he now? I said, my voice deadly calm. How very thoughtful of him. Back in Los Angeles 2 days later, I sat in Carla's sleek downtown office, surrounded by law books and the comforting smell of her jasmine tea. My best friend since law school, Carla had built her reputation defending women in high-conflict divorces. He's following a playbook, she said, scanning the documents I'd brought. Empty accounts, transfer property, isolate you professionally, classic financial abuse. I'd flown back early, burning through my personal credit card. Aaron hadn't responded to a single message, and the home security cameras now showed only static. He'd disabled my access. Can we fight this? I asked, exhaustion seeping into my bones. Carla's eyes flashed. Watch me. She pulled out a yellow legal pad and began writing rapidly. We'll file emergency motions to freeze remaining assets, document the unauthorized withdrawals, and get a forensic accountant to trace where the money went. She paused, tapping her pen against a document I'd brought. Rachel, this is your signature on the refinance papers from last month. Did you sign this? I leaned forward, squinting at the page. No, I've never seen this before. Because that's not just theft, Carla said grimly. That's fraud, and it changes everything. The next morning, Carla and I sat in a small conference room at her firm, surrounded by stacks of financial records I'd managed to download before Aaron locked me out of our accounts. Every page revealed a new betrayal. He refinanced your house 3 weeks ago, Carla said, highlighting a document, pulled out $175,000 in equity. Your forged signature is on every page. My stomach churned as I recognized the bank name. Northwest Lending? That's where his cousin Marcus works. Carla's eyebrows shot up. The loan officer? I nodded, the pieces falling into place. They golfed together every Sunday. She flipped to another document, this one showing the application details. And look who's listed as co-applicant on the new mortgage. There it was in black and white. Elise Chambers. They needed your signature because you're on the deed, Carla explained. So they forged it. Sloppy, but effective if no one's looking closely. I remembered Aaron insisting I add him to my pre-marriage accounts for simplicity. How he'd gradually taken over our finances because I was too busy with my career. This wasn't impulsive, I said, my voice hollow. He's been planning this for months. Maybe longer, Carla replied. And I don't think this is their first time. The fraud alert jolted me awake at 3:17 a.m. I fumbled for my phone in the unfamiliar darkness of Carla's guest room, where I'd been staying since my return. Suspicious activity detected on account ending 4728. I hadn't closed my personal savings account yet. It held the last $24,000 I had left to my name. With trembling fingers, I logged in, only to find a zero balance and a withdrawal timestamp from just minutes ago. I called the bank's emergency line, my voice rising with each word. How is this possible? I'm the only authorized user. The representative sounded apologetic but firm. The withdrawal was made in person at our 24-hour branch downtown. The individual presented proper ID and knew all the security questions. Check your security cameras, I demanded. That wasn't me. 3 hours and a hastily dressed trip to the bank later, I sat with the branch manager watching grainy security footage. There was Aaron, smiling charmingly at the teller, and beside him, pointing at documents and nodding reassuringly, was Elise. She identified herself as my financial advisor, the manager explained uncomfortably. She had a business card and everything. Your husband knew all your security question answers. Of course he did. He knew my first pet's name, my childhood street, my mother's maiden name. He knew everything about me, almost everything. Your house is on the market, Carla said, turning her laptop toward me. I stared at the screen in disbelief. Our home, my home, was listed for $850,000, well below market value. The description read, motivated seller, cash offers preferred. The listing agent, E. Chambers, Westside Realty. Elise isn't even a real estate agent, I said, scrolling through the professional-looking photos that showcased renovations I had overseen. According to state records, she got her license 6 months ago, Carla replied. Right around when you started working on the Hong Kong project. A sickening thought struck me. Check the open house dates. Carla clicked through the listing. First one was the day after you left for Hong Kong. They had been planning this all along, waiting for me to be gone long enough that they could sell the house, possibly even close the deal, before I was scheduled to return. There's a pending offer, Carla pointed at the screen. All cash, $830,000. Closing scheduled for next week. My throat tightened. They're selling my home out from under me. Carla turned to me, her expression hardening. Not if we stop them first. But Rachel, I don't think this is just about your house anymore. This feels too practiced. What do you mean? I mean, I think you're not their first victim. Carla's office was buzzing with activity as her team dug deeper into Aaron and Elise's history. I sat beside her paralegal, Emma, who was scrolling through court records. 3 cases in the last 5 years, Emma said, turning her monitor toward me, all following the same pattern. Sudden divorce filing while the wife is away, accounts emptied, property sold quickly. My heart pounded as she pulled up the plaintiffs' names. Diane Mendoza, Sophia Wright, and Vanessa Parker. All successful women with demanding careers, all married to Aaron Moore at different times under slightly different names. Aaron Mitchell, Aaron Montgomery, Aaron Mills. He changed his name each time, I whispered, but it's definitely him. And look who shows up in the periphery of each case, Emma continued, pulling up social media photos. In each one, Elise appeared, sometimes as a friend, sometimes as a real estate agent, always near these women before their lives fell apart. What happened with their cases? I asked. Emma's expression darkened. Diane and Sophia settled privately. They just wanted out. But Vanessa? She hesitated. Vanessa was building a solid fraud case. Then she suddenly dropped it and disappeared. Her family filed a missing persons report last year. A chill ran through me. We need to find her. Carla nodded grimly. I've already called her brother. He wants to meet. Michael Parker lived in a modest apartment in Pasadena, its walls covered with photos of his sister Vanessa. He looked exhausted, with dark circles under his eyes and a perpetual slump to his shoulders. The police didn't take it seriously, he said, pouring us coffee in mismatched mugs. Said adults disappear by choice all the time. But Vanessa wouldn't just leave. She was fighting for justice. He disappeared into a back room and returned with a small box. After she vanished, I cleaned out her storage unit, found this hidden inside a teddy bear. He handed me a tiny flash drive. Back at Carla's office, we plugged it in. The drive contained dozens of audio files, recordings of conversations between Aaron, then Aaron Mills, and Elise. The Henderson divorce was too messy, Aaron's voice said in one file. We need to target women with fewer family connections next time. The Hong Kong executive looks perfect, Elise replied. Married to her career, minimal family, significant assets. I've already befriended her. My blood ran cold. They'd been talking about me. Another file contained Aaron bragging about their scheme, how they identified targets, isolated them, then split the profits from liquidated assets. This is evidence of conspiracy, Carla whispered. And maybe worse, if they had something to do with Vanessa's disappearance. We need to be careful, I said. Very careful. The real estate website showed a second open house scheduled for Saturday. I stared at the listing photos of my own home, feeling a surreal disconnect as I planned my next move. Are you sure about this? Carla asked as she helped me with my disguise, a short blonde wig, glasses, and business attire I'd never worn before. I need to see what they're doing firsthand, I said, adjusting the unfamiliar weight of the wig. And I need Elise to see me there. I arrived at my own home as Catherine Reynolds, potential investor. The place had been staged differently. My books were gone, my art replaced with generic prints. It smelled of fresh cookies and cinnamon, a realtor's trick to make houses feel like homes. Elise greeted me at the door, professional and poised in a navy suit. She didn't recognize me at first, launching into her rehearsed spiel about the property's features. Features I had chosen and paid for. I wandered through my own home like a ghost, touching walls I'd painted, countertops I'd selected. Then, in what had been our bedroom, I turned to face her directly. Lovely master suite, I said, removing my glasses. Do you think my husband would like it, Elise? Aaron always had such particular taste. Her smile faltered, then collapsed entirely as recognition dawned. Her face drained of color. Rachel, she whispered, you're supposed to be in Hong Kong. Surprise, I replied softly. I came home early. After my confrontation with Elise, I knew they would accelerate their plans. I needed to disappear before they realized what I was doing. I met with Max Chen, the private investigator Carla recommended. I need to go off the grid, I told him in a quiet corner of a busy cafe. But I also need to monitor their every move. Max nodded, sliding a burner phone across the table. New identity package, he said. Driver's license, credit card, apartment lease in San Diego under the name Jessica Lane. All untraceable back to you. That afternoon, I emptied my desk at work, telling my boss I needed personal leave to deal with my sudden divorce. He was sympathetic but distant, Aaron's influence already poisoning my professional reputation. 2 days later, Jessica Lane began working as an administrative assistant at Meridian Consulting, the company that had recently acquired Aaron's financial services firm. My desk was 3 floors below his office. My appearance altered enough that even people who'd met me at company parties wouldn't recognize me. Each night, I documented everything I learned, building a case piece by piece. The PI reported that Aaron and Elise were frantically trying to close the house sale, slashing the price again to attract an immediate buyer. They're getting nervous, Max told me. They can't find you, and it's disrupting their timeline. Good, I thought. Let them wonder. Let them worry. The predators were about to become the prey. Max's investigation revealed a pattern more complex than I'd imagined. Behind Aaron and Elise stood an entire network of accomplices. There's the cousin at the mortgage company, Max explained, pinning photos to the corkboard in my San Diego apartment. Then there's Samuel Weiss, fake broker who handles the quick property sales, and Timothy Grant, who manages the offshore accounts. I stared at the final photo he pinned up. No, I whispered. That can't be right. Dr. Edward Miller, my economics professor from UCLA, smiled back at me from the photo. The man who had written my recommendation letter for my first job. The man who had introduced me to Aaron at a department fundraiser 12 years ago. He's the talent scout, Max said grimly. Finds promising students, tracks their careers, identifies potential targets, and makes introductions. We found communications between him and Aaron going back 15 years. I sank onto my sofa, memories rearranging themselves like a kaleidoscope. Dr. Miller had always taken a special interest in female students with entrepreneurial drive, had always kept in touch with his success stories, had always introduced them to charming, attentive men who appreciated ambitious women. He delivered us to Aaron, I said hollowly, like lambs to slaughter. Max nodded. And he's still teaching, still mentoring, still introducing. Not for long, I promised. Special Agent Diana Roberts of the FBI's Financial Crimes Division listened impassively as I laid out everything we'd uncovered. The conference room at the federal building felt too bright, too sterile for the ugly story I was telling. We've identified at least 7 victims across 3 states, I explained, sliding across the evidence Max and Carla had compiled. Forged documents, identity theft, bank fraud, real estate scams. Agent Roberts examined Vanessa's flash drive. And you believe this missing woman was targeted by the same group? I know she was, I said firmly, and I'm afraid of what they might have done to her when she threatened to expose them. I explained how I'd been documenting everything from inside Aaron's company, suspicious wire transfers, conversations about clean funds, regular meetings with the same offshore banking representative. Agent Roberts studied me with new interest. You've been undercover in your ex-husband's company? That's extremely risky, Miss Monroe. I needed proof, I said simply, and now I have it. She tapped the file containing Dr. Miller's communications. This crosses state lines, involves multiple financial institutions, and suggests a long-term conspiracy. We'll need to coordinate with other offices. So you'll take the case? I asked. For the first time, she smiled slightly. We've actually had our eye on Elise Chambers for a while. Separate investigation involving prescription fraud. You just connected some very important dots for us. Jessica, could you take these reports to the executive retreat this afternoon? My supervisor dropped a stack of folders on my desk. They need final approval before the quarterly meeting. I kept my expression neutral as my heart raced. The executive retreat was held in the company's penthouse dining room, where Aaron would certainly be present. Of course, I replied, carefully applying another layer of the makeup that helped disguise me for weeks. 4 hours later, I rode the elevator to the top floor, documents clutched against my chest. The retreat was in full swing, executives mingling over cocktails and hors d'oeuvres. I spotted Aaron immediately, holding court near the windows. He looked completely untroubled, laughing as if he hadn't destroyed multiple lives. Beside him stood a woman I didn't recognize, young, elegant, wearing an expensive watch that looked new, his next target. Across the room, Elise appeared, scanning the crowd. She'd recently been hired as the company's real estate consultant, another step in their infiltration. She caught sight of me, but her eyes slid past without recognition. As I distributed the folders, I approached Elise directly. "Miss Chambers, your copy." "Thanks," she said dismissively, barely glancing at me. I slipped a small USB drive between the pages. "All the information is in there," I said quietly. "Everything you need to know." It contained a single audio file, Aaron discussing how he would replace Elise once she outlived her usefulness. Insurance, in case things went wrong. The FBI moved faster than I expected. 3 days after the executive retreat, I received an encrypted message from Agent Roberts. Target 2 apprehended at LAX, attempting to leave country with fraudulent documents. Elise had run, exactly as I'd predicted after giving her the USB. She'd tried to flee with a fake passport and over $50,000 in cash. I watched the news coverage from my San Diego apartment, a strange sense of vindication washing over me as they showed Elise being escorted into the federal building in handcuffs. Sources say authorities are investigating a multi-state fraud operation, the reporter announced. The suspect was allegedly attempting to flee to a non-extradition country. My burner phone buzzed with a message from Max. "She's talking." Naming names. Hours later, Agent Roberts confirmed it. "Chambers made a deal. She's given us everything on Aaron Moore and the others. Claims she was coerced, of course, but her testimony is damning." The most surprising detail: Elise had kept meticulous records of every transaction, every victim, every dollar. She'd been building her own insurance policy all along. "She says Aaron was the mastermind," Agent Roberts continued. "Claims she has evidence linking him to Vanessa Parker's disappearance, though we haven't confirmed that yet." "What about the others?" I asked. "Dr. Miller? The cousin? Warrants are being prepared as we speak," she replied. "But Aaron is our primary target now." The net was closing. My position at Meridian gave me access to internal financial alerts. 3 days after Elise's arrest, I noticed an urgent request from Aaron's department. A wire transfer authorization for $1.7 million to a Cayman Islands account. He was running. I immediately contacted Agent Roberts, who connected me with a financial crimes specialist. "He's liquidating assets," I explained. "This transfer is scheduled for 9 a.m. tomorrow." "We need to let it proceed partially," the specialist said. "Enough to document the attempt, but not enough to lose the funds." I stayed up all night with the FBI team, mapping the money trail and coordinating with banking authorities. By morning, a plan was in place. At 8:57 a.m., I watched from my desk as Aaron strode confidently through the office, checking his watch. At precisely 9 a.m., he made a phone call, his expression satisfied as he received confirmation that the transfer had begun. What he didn't know: at 9:01 a.m., a federal judge signed an emergency order freezing all accounts linked to him and his associates. At 9:02 a.m., the Cayman Bank flagged the incoming transfer. At 9:03 a.m., Aaron's phone rang. I could see his face change as he received news that his escape plan had failed. By 9:05 a.m., he was frantically dialing numbers, his composure cracking for the first time since I'd known him. The man who had always been one step ahead had finally been outmaneuvered. I resigned from my position at Meridian that afternoon, my cover no longer necessary. Agent Roberts advised me to return to my legal name and address now that protective measures were in place. "We're moving on Aaron tomorrow morning," she informed me. "All assets connected to him have been frozen, including accounts we believe contain your stolen funds." I should have felt relief, but anxiety gnawed at me. Aaron cornered was Aaron dangerous. My fears proved justified at 11:27 p.m. when my phone lit up with his number. Against Robert's advice, I answered. "Rachel." His voice was eerily calm. "You've been busy." "Hello, Aaron. You think you're so clever," he continued, his tone hardening. "Playing detective, running to the feds. You have no idea what you've done." I know exactly what I've done, I replied steadily. I've stopped you from doing to other women what you did to me. He laughed, a cold sound that raised goosebumps on my arms. You've made powerful enemies, people you don't want to cross. Are you threatening me? I asked, recording the call as instructed. I'm educating you, he hissed. This isn't over. Not by a long shot. The line went dead. I immediately forwarded the recording to Roberts, who called back within minutes. We're sending officers to your location now. Don't open your door for anyone until they arrive. For the first time since this began, I was truly afraid. The morning news was dominated by images of federal agents leading Aaron out of his luxury apartment in handcuffs. Additional footage showed simultaneous raids on Marcus's home, Samuel Weiss's office, and, most shocking to the public, the arrest of Dr. Edward Miller as he was teaching a class at UCLA. Authorities are calling it one of the most sophisticated financial fraud schemes in recent years, the anchor reported. Sources say the operation targeted successful professional women through romantic relationships, systematically emptying their accounts and selling their assets before disappearing. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Colleagues, acquaintances, even old college friends who had seen the news. I declined most calls, but answered when my former boss from the Hong Kong project phoned. Rachel, my God, he said. Why didn't you tell us what was happening? He was trying to convince everyone I was having a breakdown, I explained. Would you have believed me? His silence was answer enough. The afternoon brought a new development, a special report featuring interviews with two previously unknown victims. Women from cities across the country were coming forward with similar stories about Aaron and his different aliases. Most powerful was the statement from a woman identified only as Whistleblower X, whom I recognized as myself from quotes I'd given anonymously to Agent Roberts. The most dangerous predators, the statement read, wear suits, carry briefcases, and know exactly how to exploit the trust of those who love them. A week into Aaron's detention, Agent Roberts arrived at my apartment with a plain white envelope. This came for you through Elise's attorney, she said. We've screened it. It's clean. Inside was a handwritten letter on prison stationery. Rachel, I know apologies mean nothing after what we did to you. I won't insult you by offering one. Instead, I'm giving you names. People Aaron protected. People I was too afraid to mention until now. James Whitman, the divorce mediator who helps fast-track proceedings when wives are away. Patricia Coleman, banking executive who overrides fraud alerts. Senator Richard Evans, buried complaints from previous victims. There's a storage unit in Burbank to 472 code 5591. Everything is there. All the evidence Aaron thought I destroyed. I don't expect forgiveness. I just want this to end. Elise. Agent Roberts watched my expression as I read. Is this what I think it is? I handed her the letter. It's a complete unraveling of their network, and if that storage unit contains what she claims. We'll need to move quickly, Roberts said, already dialing, especially with that senator's name involved. The mediator, the same one who had contacted me when Aaron first filed for divorce, was the most shocking betrayal. The wolf guiding the sheep directly to slaughter. She's trying to save herself, I said, but she might just help save others in the process. Meridian's stock plummeted as news of the fraud scandal spread. Aaron's department had been involved in managing executive portfolios, accounts now under intense scrutiny. Each day brought new revelations of suspicious transactions and manipulated records. The SEC launched a formal investigation focusing on whether corporate funds had been funneled into the fraud scheme. Internal emails I'd quietly forwarded to Agent Roberts proved critical, showing how Aaron had used his position to identify wealthy women in the company for targeting. Ironically, my early financial maneuvers to protect myself had created a paper trail that exposed deeper corruption. By attempting to transfer my own remaining assets beyond Aaron's reach, I'd unwittingly revealed irregular patterns in the company's accounting system. Carla called with an update from her legal contacts. They found evidence that Aaron was embezzling from Meridian's client accounts to fund the initial stages of each new scheme, she explained, using company resources to research targets, company travel budgets to arrange accidental meetings. So he wasn't just stealing from his wives, I said. He was stealing from everyone. The company president has resigned, Carla continued. Board members are lawyering up. This is becoming one of the biggest corporate fraud cases of the year. I thought of all the people at Meridian now facing uncertainty because of Aaron's actions. The corruption had spread far beyond our marriage, infecting everything it touched. Like me, they were collateral damage in his path of destruction. 6 months after Aaron's arrest, I sat in the federal courthouse as the judge delivered her ruling. The prosecution had built an airtight case, strengthened by Elise's testimony and the mountain of evidence from the storage unit. In the matter of financial restitution, the judge announced, the court orders all properties and assets illicitly obtained from Rachel Monroe be returned solely to her possession, along with damages in the amount of $1.2 million. Aaron stared straight ahead, his expression vacant. He'd aged years and months, his designer suit hanging loosely on his frame. Furthermore, the judge continued, the defendant is permanently barred from any involvement in financial services, real estate transactions, or fiduciary responsibilities. Outside the courtroom, my legal team celebrated. The victory was sweeping, beyond even what we'd hoped for. My home would be returned to me. My savings, investments, and retirement accounts would be restored. The damages would help rebuild what couldn't be replaced. Yet as I watched Aaron being led away in handcuffs, I felt oddly hollow. No legal victory could restore the sense of security he had stolen, the trust he had shattered. As if reading my thoughts, Carla squeezed my shoulder. It's not over yet, she warned. His attorney is already talking appeal. On what grounds? I asked. Anything they can think of, she replied. Aaron's not the type to accept defeat. Neither was I. The appeal hearing was scheduled for a crisp autumn morning. I chose my outfit carefully. A steel gray suit that radiated competence and calm. For the first time since this ordeal began, I would directly address Aaron in court. He shuffled in with his attorney, refusing to look at me as they took their places. The judge reviewed the appeal claims, insufficient evidence, procedural errors, excessive penalties, before turning to me. Miss Monroe, you've requested to make a statement to the court? I rose slowly. My prepared notes unnecessary. The words I needed had been forming for months. Your Honor, the defense claims the penalties facing Aaron Moore are excessive, that his actions were merely financial disputes between spouses. I turned slightly to face him directly. But this wasn't a marriage that failed. This was a predatory operation designed to identify, isolate, and devastate victims. Aaron finally met my gaze, his expression unreadable. You built an empire of lies, I said clearly. I built a case. 7 words, simple and direct, yet they carried the weight of everything I had endured and overcome. The judge studied me for a moment, then turned to Aaron's attorney. The appeal is denied, she stated firmly. The original judgments stand in their entirety. Aaron's shoulders slumped visibly, the last of his arrogance crumbling as the reality set in. This time, there would be no escape. As I walked out of the courtroom, I didn't look back. The locksmith changed the final lock on my reclaimed home as afternoon sunlight streamed through the windows. I ran my fingers along the familiar kitchen counter, now wiped clean of Aaron and Elise's presence. I wouldn't stay. Despite the legal victory, the house no longer felt like mine. Too many memories, too many violations of what should have been sacred space. I listed it with a reputable agency, a bright, ambitious woman recommended by Carla. When it sold for a well above market value, I donated half the proceeds to a new foundation I'd established with my damages award. The reclamation project would provide legal assistance, financial counseling, and temporary housing to victims of financial abuse and fraud. Already, 3 women who had come forward during Aaron's trial were receiving support through the program. With the remaining funds, I purchased a serene cottage overlooking the Pacific in Northern California. A fresh start, far from Los Angeles and its painful associations. My new consulting firm operated remotely, specializing in forensic financial analysis for women going through complex divorces. I hired Max as my investigation director, and Carla served on our advisory board. In my home office, I pinned a small news clipping to my bulletin board, the announcement of Dr. Miller's 15-year sentence for his role in the fraud scheme. Beside it hung a photograph of Vanessa Parker, whose case had finally been reopened. Some losses couldn't be reclaimed, but other paths could still be illuminated. On the 1-year anniversary of Aaron's sentencing, I walked along the beach near my cottage, watching the sunset paint the water in amber and gold. My phone chimed with an email notification. The sender was unfamiliar, but the subject line caught my attention. Your story saved me. I opened it, standing there in the sand, waves gently washing around my ankles. Dear Miss Monroe, you don't know me. I'm a software engineer from Seattle. 3 months ago, I read about your case while researching my fiancé after finding inconsistencies in his stories. Your courage in dismantling that fraud ring gave me the strength to investigate further. What I discovered was devastating. A pattern identical to what you experienced. Previous marriages, disappeared savings, forged documents. I left before he could empty my accounts. The police are now investigating his connection to similar cases across Washington state. Thank you for turning your pain into protection for others. You saved me from becoming another victim. With immense gratitude, Sophia. Tears blurred my vision as I read her words. I saved the email, adding it to a growing folder of similar messages from women who had recognized the warning signs in time. That evening, I pinned Sophia's message to my vision board, alongside articles about the ongoing investigations, pictures of my new home, and plans for expanding the reclamation project into 3 more states. I gazed at the collection, a visual representation of a journey I never wanted but had navigated nonetheless. The pain would always be there, a scar rather than an open wound, but so would this legacy of protection, awareness, and strength. I didn't just survive, I whispered to the empty room. I dismantled the machine that tried to destroy me. Outside my window, the last rays of sunset disappeared, darkness falling across the ocean. But inside, everything was light.